right, welcome back everyone for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com, where I talk about those cheap books you can still probably find tucked away in those dollar bins, those discount boxes, just some cheap stuff that you can probably find that's based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, things going on in the actual comic books, and just generally anything I think is kind of interesting for this week that I think you should be keeping an eye out for. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And with that said, if you want to see this week's selection of books, just hang on for a few seconds and I will be right back. All right, so we are going to start off in the world of comics. So we got a bunch of new releases this week, read a bunch of stuff, and I ran across a couple of interesting little tidbits that I think tie into some of the books that came out this week for New Comic Book Wednesday. Hopefully you find these selections kind of interesting. Now, I'm trying to get myself back on board to reading Nightwing on the regular. It has always been a pretty well-written series, good art, etc. Plus, Nightwing's a pretty cool character. I just keep going on and off the train. I'm trying to get myself back on the train, and with that, get back into what's going on here. As we do have a pretty new creative team starting off a new run here on the series, so I'm going to give them a shot. With that said, inside the guts of this book, we get to see a character it's been around a while, but again, somebody you might not have been thinking about for a while, and that is right here, the commissioner, I believe, of what do you call it? I'm just drawing a blank of Metropolis or whatever, but that's where she first started off or whatever. But Maggie Sawyer first showed up way back in the 80s in a book that is known for something else, but this is a character that you can see has stood the test of time and has kind of risen up through the ranks and now is playing a big role there in in Nightwing these days. With that said, sorry, drawing a blank. It was a long night last night on TAC. We went over 4 hours with Mark Spears on. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But yeah, I'm kind of dragging today as a result of it. But with that said, she first showed up back in December 1986 in Superman #4. And you remember when Bloodsport was all a big deal because, he showed up in the last Suicide Squad movie. This character, Maggie Sawyer, also showed up in this same book. So this is like a 2-for-1 kind of a dollar bin book that you could probably find again. And when I say dollar bin book, it might be out there for a couple of bucks, but it's generally cheap again. The buzz from the Idris Elba playing Bloodsport has really kind of faded away. So this thing is back in those discount bins again. So with that said, inside the guts of this book here, you can see there she is right over there. She was part of Major Crimes over in Metropolis at the time, before becoming a new commissioner. But yeah, slightly different look as far as the hair color goes, but this is still the same character. And as I mentioned, it's still cheap once again. So just because it got hot once before, it's no longer like a $15 book or anything like that. Granted, you might kind of reach up there occasionally, but by and large, you can see here, yeah, a couple copies sold for $7 and $8, but there was also an auction that ended for $1 with just the one bid on it. So granted, it could have been a buy it now negotiated price, but point being, it's still a cheap book with recent sales and asking prices. You can see copies listed for about $6. And granted, condition sensitive, obviously. You're going to pay a little bit more for a higher grade, but it's still relatively a cheap book and one you can keep an eye out for. Now, sticking with DC, we can go take a look over at The Question. So all along the Watchtower #3. Pretty fun series with Renee Montoya as The Question. She's kind of like the sheriff of the Watchtower, which is almost like now it's like a city of superheroes in the sky. So it's like they've kind of created a little bit of Astro City here in the DC universe. But here we go with a little detective tale as we are still following up on the attack on this guy right here, Ken. So Ken Kawa, I'm going to say his name right. Ken Kawa, one of the challengers of the unknown. He got attacked, I think, in issue 2. Was it the end of issue 2? I don't know, one of the prior issues, but he's still here dealing with the repercussions, and she's still trying to figure out, how and why he was attacked. So here's Ken, Ken Kawa, again, if I'm saying it right, I'm not sure, but he showed up in the kind of the relaunch redone version of the Challenge of the Unknown there in the 90s. So this is December 1996. Are you ready for the truth? They kind of were going more for like an X-Files kind of vibe, I guess, to kind of reignite the series, because the original old school team goes back to the golden age, and they're like, sort of adventurers in a Johnny Quest Fantastic Four kind of way. And this was trying to modernize this team, like I said, to make them a little more edgy and, like I said, more akin to like what was popular at the time, like, in which that was kind of like X-Files. So that's kind of what they were going with, at least from what I remember of this series. So here's Ken introduced with the whole team in this book. Now, this thing, it's still pretty cheap. Like, not a lot of people are going back and grabbing this thing. Only sale I could find was the entire 18-issue run that sold for $20. So that's the only sale I could find recently. And then asking prices, yeah, there's a copy for $2. There's a copy for $8, but it also has free delivery. So most of that is shipping. So it is, again, like a $2 book. And then you can see, ooh, $16.95, but that is for the entire 18-issue set. So that's less than $1 a book. So again, this is a $1 book that you can probably find tucked in a box somewhere if you're interested. Now, the more fun one that you might want to hunt is a little bit oversized, and it is an ash can that came out right around the same time as this, and it was also introducing some other other tales coming out of the the kind of Vertigo-ish type of imprint in the darker side of DC, I should say. But here you go. This is a free edition. It was an ash can. There's actually 2 versions of this. This was the first print version of it, and it was free. It was out there, and you can see right there, kind of in the corner, that the new challengers were being introduced and teased in this free book. Not that easy to find, but hey, who knows what you might go and dig out of a box somewhere when you go out there digging. But copies are sold. One sold for $15, so that ain't bad if you can find it. And then there's a copy listed that's looking for $16. And again, 1986. It was a promo. It was a free giveaway. It was kind of cool. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. Now, speaking of free, those of you out there who haven't tried Whatnot, get yourselves a free $15 on your first purchase. So sign up, try it out. Free $15 to spend on whatever you want, with whomever you want. No strings attached. You help out the channel. You get yourself something nice. So you really got nothing to lose to give it a shot if you haven't already. So give Whatnot a try and get your free $15 to spend on, again, whatever you like. There's comics, there's toys, there's collectibles. There's all kinds of stuff out there. So $15, get what you like. With that said, let's pivot on over to Marvel and see what they were getting up to this week with Spirits of Vengeance number 5. So I haven't been keeping up completely with this series, but this kind of reintroduced Vengeance back as a character, and then we're getting a whole bunch of other Ghost Riders mixed in without. I believe we had Johnny Blaze. I think I saw Danny Ketchin here. Robbie Reyes, I think, popped in even, and then Phantasma, is that her name? The new Champions Ghost Rider. She even popped in this book. And we also get teased here. This guy, our cybernetic Ghost Rider of the future. That's right. Ghost Rider 2099. Pretty cool, right? So 2099 Ghost Rider first appeared, well, in Ghost Rider 2099, which is kind of a fun book. It's got a little shiny foil cover. And again, these 2099 books, you can frequently find them out there in those cheap boxes because it's kind of a forgotten era of Marvel. They've been trying to bring it back over recent years with some minis and some short storylines, but by and large, a lot of these characters, don't show up all that often. But here we go. Issue 1 came out again back in March of 1994. And then, yeah, he had the ability to, chainsaw hand, as you saw on the cover of the recent issue. He could do and do a lot of fun stuff, considering he was like cybernetic. It's almost like a Terminator Ghost Rider, right? I guess, sort of. Is that an easy way to kind of explain it? But with that said, here are the prices of the book. You can see, copies can still do all right. $8.50, $14. I mean, $15. That's not too bad. But then there's also cheap copies out there. I mean, look, somebody has one up for $2 with 0 bids. So 17 hours left. This is going to end Friday morning. If you're interested, throw a bid down. Maybe you'll win. And that one in the middle, you can kind of see how it has that hollow foil cover because the angle of the picture is giving you that nice little rainbow glow. $6, $5. You can find this for pretty cheap. So that's the point. And who knows how long Ghost Rider 2099 might stay around for. Or it might just be like a little quick one-off appearance, but still kind of a fun callback, however, this decides to play out. Now, also over at Marvel. And this is going to be a pretty short episode because, again, like I said, I'm kind of tired today. I'm dragging a bit, but still got some fun stuff that we can talk about. And this batshit crazy insane episode of Avengers Assemble, or issue of Avengers Assemble, where we've got Cap Snake. That's right, Captain America gets turned into a snake, or at least he did at the end of issue 4. So yeah, let's just get into this because there is a crap load of Serpent Society characters in this book, including some newer ones that have been introduced through this series. I mean, there's a giant one called Titan Boa or something, I think. There's a lot of weird, wild, wacky stuff going on in this book, but it's kind of expected for this Avengers Assemble book. When they come up with a stupid name like it's Avenge in an E.R.S. because they're the Emergency Response Squad or whatever. I don't know, that kind of stuff a little too on the nose for me. Let them just be a side Avengers team. We don't have to do this weird acronym forced, abbreviation thing. But that all said, but and don't get me started on the jackets. The jackets is just a silly idea, and I don't know. I just can't believe that they actually put the jackets on these guys and think that it's a cool look, because it kind of really isn't.
And perhaps you should be taught a lesson by us, los souvenir jaquitos.
I get it. It's a fun callback back to the 90s when they kind of did that before the West Coast Avengers and whatnot. But yeah, the jacket look ain't working today. I'm sorry. With that said, let's actually get into this book now. Sorry, I've been babbling on about how weird this title is, but I think it's meant to be weird. But here we go. We're going to talk about, not all, because there's a lot of Serpent Society characters in here, a lot of them, and some of them actually do have harder to find and more expensive first appearances. I might go way, way back into the lore of Marvel, but I'm going to try to tell you about a few of the cheaper ones that you can probably, again, go and scoop when you go out there digging. Starting off with this guy, tucked away here in the corner. I mean, he appears throughout the issue, kind of like mixed and match. He's one of the few snake, bodied characters. All these characters are snake related, but most of them are still very humanoid, and they got some snake aspects. So they're just wearing like a snake costume. This dude is like half snake, like Globulus from G.I. Joe, and this is Bushmaster. So Bushmaster has been around a while, and again, he's like a half snake man, and he showed up with a few of these and the original, well, not the original, but the Serpent Society in a book we've talked about. So we're going to get this one out of the way because we've talked about this already. But Captain America 310, a few first appearances. I think there's the Diamondback is in here as well. But a part of this introduction of the Serpent Society in this issue there was Bushmaster. So boom, Bushmaster sitting at the table. You don't see his bottom snake half. Again, we've already talked about this book recently, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's still cheap. It's still something you can find out there, and can do all right every once in a while. Look, copies sold are as cheap as $3, and then other copies going $8 to $10. Asking prices $10, $15 here and there, some with free shipping, etc. All right, I mean, it is what it is, but it's still one you can go and dig for. And if you're going out there and digging, another option for you, if you like to go more towards those preview routes, I know a lot of people don't. A lot of people are like, they poo-poo and they don't like previews. They're like, oh, no. It's not real. It's not a real appearance. Hey, be that as it may, the Marvel Age double-size annual from 1985 also had little stories and teasers and snippets. Granted, it's like mixing storytelling with creators and whatnot, and they're like doing some on-the-nose like jokes about the books they've got coming out and all that kind of weird stuff. But here we do see Bushmaster in this book, as well. I believe this actually came out in the month after the Captain America book, so it is technically not the first, but again, it's just a fun book that you can go and dig and chase for, and one that is generally pretty cheap. I mean, copies have sold for like $3. Copies listed $3.50, like $10, $11. Not going to get you rich if you find it, but could be something fun to flip through. Now, also in the midst of this Avengers Assemble book, we also get other characters like this one right here, Black Racer, I believe her name is, and she's like the speedster snake of the group. And you can see, look, there's Bushmaster again, kind of buried by the arrow, but again, plenty of characters in here. Now, Black Racer, weird wispy haircut. It's feathered and lethal. Yeah, she showed up way back in Cap. A lot of these characters show up in Captain America, the Serpent Society. As you can see, it's original Cap idea. There's no surprise they're going to be represented at least partially in some way in the next Cap movie. Now, kind of disappointed to hear like Seth Rollins getting cut, but I don't know, I thought it could have been kind of cool. With that said, this is 337 of Captain America, rocking the USA agent. You got D-Man in there. You got, is that Nomad or is that Battlestar? I can't remember what what moniker some of these characters went by, but this was, back in those days where Cap was just doing all kinds of weird stuff. We're swapping characters in and out, and he has a crazy team going together and fighting these villains. Anyway, September 1987. Right here, we see this, at the time, new group of Serpent Society characters, including Puff Adder, and you got Sidewinder, I think, in there, etc. But Black Racer is introduced here. She is kind of just off to the side, and she kind of speeds around, and again, she's the speedster of the Serpent Society. With that, not an expensive book. You can see here, copies can sell for $2, $3. Yes, one sold for $15. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, it does have that throwback to Avengers 4 where Cap joins the Avengers as far as the cover goes. I'm sure you guys noticed that when this has been up on screen this whole time. But in case you didn't, let me mention that. So it is an homage cover to that, Avengers 4. That said, asking prices as cheap as $2, $10. Yeah, there's $18, but that is for a run of 12 issues. So 12 issues for $18. It's $1.50 each. That ain't too bad. So again, you can find these things for cheap. You can find them in lots. You can find them in packs, groups, however you find your cheap comics. Again, it's a fun book to go look for. And it's got some first appearances in it if you want some more Serpent Society stuff. Now, we're not done. We still have more Serpent Society stuff for you as we can go on to another character here. So here we go. Still in this issue. You saw there's a whole bunch of Serpent characters in here. But the next one, I'm showing you this one picture. She's kind of in the background here and there throughout the book. But we're talking about Coach Whip. I don't know where they come up with these names. I guess these are all snake names, but some of them really don't need to be character names. They're just kind of, Coach Whip? Like, isn't that what the dude would do in a carriage? Like, for the horses? Like, is that really the... Anyway. Point being, this character, we get shown here, she's one we want to talk about, but she's not alone. Who else do we got here? Why am I pointing at Coach Whip again? Oh, I didn't want to show Coach Whip here. He's also... All right, so this is the wrong panel, but this character here, Rock Python, is also in this book. So Rock Python also shows up, so we could talk about him, as well as... And the reason why I'm grouping these three together is because we're going to be talking about the same first appearance book. So that's why I'm piling them all together. And then we got this guy over here who looks like he's wearing, he's like the hood from The Watchmen. Or I think he was Hooded Justice. Hooded Justice. He's got that kind of look to him. Or he actually kind of looks like Knuckles a little bit when you see that Rock Python. No, this isn't Rock Python. This is what was his name? It wasn't Bojangles. I'm sorry. The deck is just not complete. I told you I had a rough day putting this all together. But what the heck was his name? It's not Bojangles. Just drawing a blank here. Boomslang. Boomslang was his name. Yeah, it's not a much better name, though, is it? So, Boomslang, and again, see how it looks like he's got the Knuckles floppy echidna ears or something. Anyway, I think it's a hood, but Boomslang. All three of these characters all sort of appear Darkseid style on television screens in this issue of Captain America. If they're cheesy cameos, they're not even named yet. For some of them, they're not all named, I should say. But in Captain America 341, I think it's Rhodey that he's fighting in this one. I'm not 100%. I can't remember. But Captain America facing off with Iron Man. But then we also got a whole bunch of Serpent Society characters doing Serpent Society stuff throughout this book. And you can see here, there's Coach Whip running with our friend here, Boomslang. Not named. They're just there on TV screens, monitors, So there was other panels in this that had like the whole Serpent Society like sitting and talking about their plans, but these characters weren't in that group, but they're on the screens here. And one more, we don't want to forget our man Rock Python. So Rock Python, they believe, was this guy down here in this screen. Granted, it could be a different character. Maybe I can't tell, but it looks like Rock Python as far as I could tell. Point being, all these three show up on TV screens in this issue, and it's pretty cheap. So $8, $1.25, $2. Those are some recent sales. This is being more known as the first appearance of Battlestar. So people looking for that instead of the Serpent Society characters, but you get extra first appearances if you can find this book. Extra reasons, extra bites at the apple, if you will. Asking prices, $5, $12, $15 get you a lot of 5. Again, not a super expensive book and something you can dig out. Now, in the next issue, we get a little bit more and a little bit more of a clear introduction for some of them. So we're going to go towards Captain America 342 here. I mean, Viper was kind of running the show a lot of the way in this storyline here, but February 1988, here's a better look, and we get an introduction. Look, Coach Whip's the name. She shows up throughout the book, actually doing stuff as opposed to just being on a television screen for one panel. That said, Coach Whip is in here, also in this issue, but more background player. But they're mentioned. There's Rock Python, and you can look. They it's almost like they have to force the dialogue to say all of their names, and there's like a dozen snake characters in here, and it's like, what? She's lunging for me up there. Rock Python and the Rattler. Like, we just got to name everybody if we can. And then more disappointing than this, though, has to still be our friend Boomslang, who he gets mentioned, and I'm pretty sure it's that shadowed character because that's all he gets. Coach Whip's in the book. Rock Python gets a few panels. Poor Boomslang, he just gets mentioned to say, hey, go with Cobra and go do some work. But I think that's him because, again, with the hooded look, and when he's done, and they're saying when you're finished loading. So I think that's got to be him doing the loading because it's not these two, because that's Anaconda talking to, or that's Anaconda, and that doesn't look like him. That looks more like Rock Python, maybe. I don't know. Point being, a lot of crazy snake characters. They don't get a lot of time and a lot of spotlight, but still kind of fun to go and dig for this stuff. With that said, this is another book, very, very cheap. Copy sold $1.20, $2.50, as much as $8. Asking prices $3, $10, $5 auction starting that has a handful of issues. There's a lot of 5. You can find this stuff for cheap. So that's what I got from Marvel. But before we get on to our last item, let me remind you, for those of you who need to buy your supplies, your bags, your boards, your top loaders, your long boxes, short boxes, CGC boxes, whatever you need to keep your collectibles safe, whether they be top loaders for comics or cards, etc., you're going to spend the money at BCW. You might as well save some money while you do and use my code RENA10 and get yourself 10% off your entire order, because it sucks to have to spend money on that stuff to keep your stuff safe. So when you're doing it, you might as well save some money. So use that code if you're buying stuff when you do your next order. And again, save yourself a few bucks because there's no harm in that, right? With that said, let's do one more item that's kind of a news item. It's more of a rumor, but I think it still could be kind of fun. And it's not wholly unexpected, but with Downey playing Dr. Doom, it's not surprising. When we're getting Evans back, it's not surprising they're bringing back all the oldies. Like, they kind of want to, I guess, get the Marvel Cinematic Universe back to a more familiar point for audiences. So I think they're bringing back all the old heads and all the old faces. So I would not be surprised if this were to come out true, with Gwyneth Paltrow to return as Pepper Potts playing Rescue at some point. You remember she did get the armor, got to play as Rescue in Endgame here. We also got the tease of A-Force when all the female superhero characters all teamed up. Don't know if we'll ever get anything out of that, but we could still talk about Rescue here. And they tried to build more on the character. Remember, I think she even got a series of her own for a little bit, short-lived, but going back to that first appearance or that first introduction when she's getting the armor, that is February of 2009, Invincible Iron Man number 10. There are 2 covers for this. There's a secret one that has the Iron Man helmet instead of Tony Stark's face there. So just keep an eye out for it. It goes for a couple bucks more. But again, inside this book, she finds and that she gets this armor. And this was the first look at Rescue. Eventually, she became more blue to kind of differentiate her from all the other Iron Man armors that we get, and Ironheart and yada, yada, yada. Point being, this is Pepper getting her rescue suit. It used to be very expensive. Back when that was all happening and during Endgame, this got pretty hot and this got pretty pricey. These days, it's back there just kind of buried in those bins again. So look, $6 copy sold for. And then that secret cover I told you about, $13. So you might get a few bucks more. And there is also a second print that's just reprinting the panel inside. That has $10. Those used to be expensive. Those were like $30 at one point, even more, I think. But now, Yeah, just back there in the bins. Look, $6, $6, $8.50 for the second print. Yeah, yeah, dig. You never know what you might find. That's all I'm saying. It's just fun stuff that's kind of tied into things that are still coming our way. That's happening in the comics. And comics should be fun after all. So with that, I know it was a shorter show. I did what I could to try to keep this thing rolling. Didn't want to miss it completely, but hopefully you enjoyed that. And hopefully you're still enjoying everything else here on the channel. And with that, I just want to say thank you. And see you all later with some more content. All right. Bye.